One of life's most commonly asked questions is, what is the meaning of life? This was certainly a question that I asked myself on many occasions, but then at the age of 23, after a lifetime of thinking that Christianity was a dull, boring, conservative religion, I had a massive supernatural encounter with God. An encounter that was so powerful that I immediately became a born-again Christian. And for the past 40 years, I have been on a spiritual pathway that has been so amazing that I call it life's ultimate journey. I am aware today that there are so many people who have got no idea what Christianity is actually all about. They may view it as an irrelevant religion. And because in some circles, Christianity has been so badly misrepresented, there are many people who simply aren't even interested in finding out what Christianity is all about. This is why I have put together this 5-session presentation. In it, I show what Christianity actually is and why millions of Christians around the world can testify that Christianity is life's greatest blessing and life's ultimate journey. I genuinely believe that in life there is no subject more important to investigate and research than the claims of Christianity. You might be on a spiritual search right now, and there's a whole lot of answers that you're looking for. Can I warmly encourage you to watch this entire presentation with an open mind? I believe that the things contained in this presentation can be absolutely life-changing. They certainly were for me. I hope you enjoy it. I'd like to start this session by sharing with you my spiritual journey. I became a born-again Christian when I was 23 years old. Up to this point, I had always believed in God, and I believed in Jesus, but I never ever had wanted to become a Christian. I had this notion that Christianity was just a boring religion. When I was very young, my mother used to take me to church every Sunday. It was a very traditional church. It was a 1-hour service, but that 1 hour just seemed to go on forever. Sometimes I'd wake up on a Sunday morning and I'd literally pray that Mum would sleep in so I wouldn't have to go to church. That church service to me was the worst time for my entire week. I had a large circle of friends and not a single one of them was a Christian. We used to go out to nightclubs and we were party people. We had very excessive lifestyles. But then one day my best friend came to me and he announced that he had just become a born-again Christian. Whilst I had no desire to become a Christian myself, I was always interested in spiritual things. And so I was interested to hear what my friend had to say. And when he used to talk to me and he spoke to me a lot about Christianity, it was sort of different to what I previously heard. It wasn't dry and it wasn't dull. He was very interesting and the message even sounded exciting. Anyway, a couple of months had gone by and I'm sitting in his home in Sydney and he starts preaching at me. He starts again talking to me about Christianity. And everything that he said made sense. And in my heart, I knew it was right. But my head was having a different experience. I was having thoughts like, oh, if you become a Christian, you'll lose all of your friends, you'll have to change your lifestyle, you'll have to stop doing this and this, you'll just become a goody-goody. And it was like a battle was taking place between my head and my heart. And it was so intense that I turned to my friend and I said, please don't talk to me anymore. Stop preaching at me. And when I said that, he walked out of the room and I'm just sitting there. Then a moment later, he came back in. And when he came back in, I experienced a supernatural encounter with God. That's how I would explain it. It was as though that the power of God came upon me. My whole body started trembling and shaking. And it was like these waves were just flowing through me. Waves of love and joy and happiness and peace. It was the most supernatural experience that you could possibly imagine. In fact, I couldn't imagine it because I'd never known anything like it before. It was something that I've never experienced. It was something that no drug would be able to reproduce this. It was just a supernatural encounter with God. And so I said to my friend, I was just shaking. I said, "What's happening to me?" And he said to me, when you told me to stop talking about Christianity, I walked out and I prayed. And he said, this is what I prayed. He said, "God, Michael thinks you're boring and he thinks Christianity is boring. Please touch him with your power." At that moment, I realized that I'd been pretty much deceived throughout my entire life concerning Christianity, thinking it was a dull and conservative religion. I had just had an encounter, a supernatural encounter with God, which was so radical, it literally made my alternative lifestyle, which I thought was so exciting, look really tame. That night, I became a born-again Christian, and I embarked upon what I call life's ultimate journey. As I look back, I realized that my spiritual journey began with a Christian belief system. Because of the early church involvement that I had and going to a religious school and no doubt the input that Mum gave me, I grew up with a belief in God. I grew up with a belief in Jesus. I had a Christian belief system. Coming to a place of believing is the first step of our spiritual journey. Now, I'm aware, because I've had many discussions with people on this subject, that there are many people who would probably love to become a Christian. They think that Christianity would be a great lifestyle. But they've said to me, I can never become a Christian because I just simply don't believe. My answer is this: you mightn't believe now. But if you, with a sincere heart, seek God and you say, "God, I'm having problems believing. Can you please help me?" If you do this, I do believe that God will reveal himself to you. You know, the Bible tells us that if we seek, we will find. And if we knock on the door, it will be opened. Now, for all of you who are struggling to believe, I want to spend the rest of this session presenting to you the reasons why I believe in the existence of God and why I believe that Jesus is the Son of God. But before I start, I need to let you know that my main point of reference is going to be the Bible. Now, this could be a problem for some of you because some of you might doubt the accuracy of the Bible, you might doubt its authenticity. Well, here's some information which you might find enlightening.
The Bible is a truly unique book. Unlike other historic and religious writings that rely on a single author, the Bible is a collection of 66 books written by at least 40 authors over a 1600-year period of time. But can it be trusted? Is the Bible a reliable source? When it comes to historic authenticity and accuracy, the New Testament, where we find the historic account of Jesus' life and the teachings of the Christian faith, it's without peer amongst historic writings. When assessing the integrity of historic writings, there are two key tests. Test number one, how credible are the original authors? Were they in a position to give an accurate report of the historic events? When we examine the credibility of the New Testament authors, we find that they were either eyewitnesses to the events, for example, Peter and John, two of Jesus' close disciples, or they were given the information from eyewitnesses. And test number two, how reliable are the manuscripts that are available to us? Manuscript reliability is based on the number of manuscripts we have and the length of time or how close to the actual events they were written. At present, we have in existence over 23,000 New Testament manuscripts. By comparison, Homer's Iliad, which is second to the New Testament in manuscript authority, has less than 2,000 manuscripts. Other historic writings have significantly lower numbers of manuscripts. For example, Caesar's history of the Gallic Wars rests upon 9 or 10 manuscripts dating 1,000 years after his death. Not only do we have vast numbers of manuscripts, It's widely recognized that the original New Testament writings were written within the time of Christ. No other historic writings come close to this type of credibility. Prolific author on manuscript authority Bruce Metzger stated that the quantity of New Testament material is almost embarrassing in comparison with other works of antiquity. Author Josh McDowell sums up the authenticity and reliability of the Bible. In his book, More Than a Carpenter, he states, if one discards the Bible as unreliable historically, then he or she must discard all the literature of antiquity. No other document has so much evidence to confirm its reliability. The Bible is a supernatural book. The author is God, and it contains instructions and wisdom from Him. The Bible is God's gift to the world.
A genuine spiritual search needs to begin by investigating the question, does God exist? And when I say God, for you it might be intelligent design or even the big guy in the sky. You know what I mean. But the question is God real? For me, a belief in God is not a big faith step. The majority of the world's population believe in God. We are told that 86% of the world's population have some sort of religious affiliation. As well as that, there are those people who aren't religious, but they have a belief in God. Statistics tell us that well over 90% of the world's population would say, yes, I believe in God or in an intelligent designer. Why is this? Why do so many people believe in God? Well, the Bible tells us. In Psalm 19, verse 1, we read, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of His hands. Everything about the universe is a grand design. Consider the stars. Consider the planets. Everything about this world is a grand design. The beauty of nature, the animal kingdom. Consider the human race. Consider yourself. You are a creative masterpiece. It's inconceivable that you happened randomly by chance. Behind every grand design, there has to be a grand designer. For me, it takes far more faith to be an atheist than to believe in God. In fact, in 2004, the atheistic world was stunned when one of its highest profile speakers and authors, Professor Anthony Flew, at the age of 81, announced that he was no longer an atheist. 3 years later, he wrote a book called There Is a God, and in it, he wrote why he now believes in intelligent design. He stated that he always followed the Socrates principle of following the evidence wherever it leads. And in doing so, he found so much compelling scientific evidence, especially in the area of DNA, that he came to the conclusion that there must be intelligent design. As we embark on our spiritual search, a belief in God needs to be our first step. But when we've come to that place where we do believe in God, the next step is we need to consider Jesus. Is Jesus the Son of God? Years ago, there was an amazing song by a singer called Joan Osborne. And the words were, what if God was one of us? Well, God was one of us. And in John's Gospel, in chapter 1, reading from verse 1, we read, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then in verse 14 it says, the Word became flesh and made His dwelling amongst us. The Bible tells us that the Word was Jesus, and Jesus dwelt among us. What if God was one of us? Well, 2,000 years ago, God did become one of us. There is no doubt that believing that Jesus is the Son of God is a big faith step. But it's not a ridiculous blind leap of faith, because there is so much credible evidence that shows that Jesus is the Son of God. I'd now like to present some facts for you to consider. The first fact, Jesus was a historic figure. He did exist. The Bible gives us a comprehensive record of Jesus' life and ministry. But the historic accounts aren't just limited to the Bible. The Bible clearly had more to say than any other historic writing, but there were other historic writers. There was the Jewish historian Josephus who wrote about Jesus, and other historians like the Roman politician Tacitus wrote about Jesus. We do have historic evidence concerning Jesus' life and ministry, and the reality is you simply would not find a credible historian anywhere who would doubt the existence of Jesus. This leads us to the second fact about Jesus that we need to consider, the fact that Jesus himself claimed to be the Son of God. Now we need to be aware that Jesus was the only religious leader who actually claimed to be the Son of God. Other religious leaders like Buddha or Muhammad or Moses or Confucius, whilst they might have considered themselves to be enlightened teachers or prophets or men of God, they never considered themselves to be God. Jesus did. He claimed to be the Son of God. This is what sets Christianity apart from other religions. Now, the question that we need to be asking ourselves is, what conclusions do we come to concerning a person who claims to be the Son of God? I think there are only three options that we can come up with. Option number one, we believe their claim that they are the Son of God. But if we don't believe that, if we don't believe they are the Son of God, we only have two other options. And option number two is that person is a complete lunatic, that they are absolutely mentally unbalanced, which is what you would think about somebody who thought they were the Son of God and they weren't. And then we have the third option. The third option is we would have to think that they are a compulsive liar, because you'd never come up with a bigger lie than that, to claim that you were the Son of God if you knew that you weren't. The fact is, there are many people who don't believe Jesus is the Son of God. They believe that he was a great teacher, that he was the greatest humanitarian, a man whose life was an example for all of us to follow. But that doesn't make sense if he was a compulsive liar or if he was mentally unbalanced. It just doesn't make sense. I'd now like you to consider some comments made by Bono, the singer of U2, which he made in a television interview. When asked by the interviewer who was Jesus, this is what Bono said.
What or who was Jesus as far as you're concerned?
I think it's a defining question for a Christian, is who was Christ. And I don't think you're let off easily by saying a great thinker or a great philosopher, or because actually he went round saying he was the Messiah. That's why he was crucified. He was crucified because he said he was the Son of God. So he either, in my view, was the Son of God, or he was
Not.
nuts.
Nuts, yes.
Forget
Yes.
rock and roll messianic complexes. This is like, Charlie Manson type delirium. And I find it hard to accept that all the millions and millions of lives, half the earth, for 2,000 years, have been touched, have felt their lives touched and inspired by some nutter.
The fact is, Jesus himself claimed to be the Son of God. And it wasn't just him making the claim, but the people at that time who knew him also acknowledged that he was the Son of God. And the historic authors also acknowledged that he was the Son of God. We've got to be asking the question, why did people believe he was the Son of God? And this leads us to the third fact that I believe that we need to consider, the fact that Jesus did things that humans simply can't do. Jesus was a miracle worker. He healed the sick. He raised the dead. He walked on water. He turned the water into wine. He calmed the storm. He was a miracle worker. Jesus did things that people simply can't do. And on top of that, he rose from the dead. After being crucified and put in a tomb for 3 days, he then appeared to over 500 people. They saw the resurrected Christ. What Jesus did proved who he was. The final fact that we need to look at is the fact that Jesus has profoundly influenced the whole world. We can see Jesus' influence in people's transformed lives. Earlier, I shared my own testimony about how God changed me. But that wasn't just a unique thing for me. There are literally countless millions of people around the world who will say that Jesus Christ is alive and that he has changed their lives. And these testimonies are not just happening in the so-called Christian nations, but in actual fact, the greatest Christian growth is now taking place in nations that traditionally are not Christian nations. Nations like China are seeing unprecedented growth with Christianity. In fact, statisticians are now telling us that the fastest growth in any country in the world at the moment is in the nation of Iran in the Middle East. And I want to point out that unlike some of the other world religions, in Christianity there is no law making a person become a Christian. There's no pressure from the government or from the country they live in to become a Christian. It is a free will thing. I want to finish this session by showing a short video clip which has been described as the bravest moment in rock and roll history. The occasion was London's Wembley Stadium in 1992. It was the Freddie Mercury tribute concert. Freddie Mercury was the singer of the band Queen and he died of AIDS. And 72,000 people came along to this concert. A who's who of rock royalty performed in tribute for Freddie Mercury. One of the performers was David Bowie. David Bowie was a great friend of Freddie Mercury and he performed his well-known song Heroes. After he finished the song, something amazing happened.
This tribute is for our great friend Freddie Mercury. And I'd like to offer something in a very simple fashion, but it's the most direct way that I can think of doing it. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Right. God bless Queen. God bless you. Thank you. Good night.
This was the Lord's Prayer. This was the prayer that Jesus taught his followers to pray. After the event, Brian May, he was the Queen's guitarist, when asked about it, he said, he sure didn't do that during rehearsals. Jesus is the Son of God, and he has influenced the whole world. And in the next session, we are going to see how he did it.